Any further comments to this theme? Yes, over there.
It was a nice point there. There's an actual PhD dissertation about process fragments or process smaller modules. That means at the runtime, you looking around your environment, and then you have process fragments which you are linking wearing the round time and not the build time. That's a new idea in theory. Could that be an interesting point for the practice to go into further? That would be the question of mine.
Would you have any?
Yeah, from a research point of view, it would be great, huh?
Yeah.
But the question was, would that be a good idea in practice?
I mean, it very much depends, I would assume, on whether this really works. Ultimately, right?
Okay.
And to my best knowledge, this would be still, quite a way to go. Because I could expect, I mean, from the cases you presented, the things you roll out need to have certain maturity, need to be stable, need to be robust also. That is something, big difference probably between these things you can imagine in modeling and then those things which you really want to apply in order to run a 20,000 employee company on all continents. But that's just my view as an academic.
Okay.
Maybe we have some other practitioners commenting on this. Okay. I mean, if you understand it right, was your suggestion to work towards a configuration of processes which can be customized to certain specific local requirements, but in runtime even. So it's difficult enough during build time, but you want to do it in runtime.
That's right. In build time we have already with reference modeling and configuring, but if you're on runtime, then you have process fragments in runtime to link together. That would be the idea.
But that's really theory from my perspective. I mean, you need to have a certain maturity at that point in time, right? If you roll it out, and usually it's not only one using that process, there are many, and then you start. I mean, the deviations you need to handle, right? I mean, that's a little bit the thing.
If I could sum up, that's the idea of Industry 4.0, and that's why I want to give it a discussion. Okay, thank you.
Totally makes sense to continue research in this area.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Mario, would you have any examples in practice how on digital innovations, like how digital innovations could enable, or digital IT could enable new
I bring here a small experience from my side. I don't know how many Germans here in this room and how many Germans see the Google spot last year of the river on the east side of Germany. I don't know how many people see this Google spot. Not so much. Okay. Google last year sent a spot of the east side of Germany. Last year, raining 2 weeks fully 24 hours, and the river, one step out of the river, typically gray. So the walls don't have here really can hold this extreme much of water. So what do Google at this moment? He organized with his software from the big data with geodata, GPS, and the local protectness, security, I don't know, police, technische Hilfswerk, I don't know, can you translate this, technische Hilfswerk? So, and the Eastern people, not only, but the German people coming with this information, the right place, but one step out the river from over the wall and build up a bigger wall this moment. 2-3 hours before he won't step out from the normal way, he was there and built up here a higher wall. Wow. And the construction was there, all the materials was there from Technische Hilfswerk, and thousands of people built up here the wall. And most of places don't step out here the river. And with this data from geodata from Google, organization with Facebook, in real time, real time, GPS informations, right way, right place, right people. This is fantastic.
It's a fantastic example.
And this is real big data will help us in the daily incidents what we have in front of us in this new, I think, not so easy world in front of us of different problems that we have in front of us.
Yes, that's amazing. Is that, I mean, could we say that helped to forecast kind of this catastrophe?
A real-time forecast.
In real-time forecast, and then also fast enough in order to prevent the catastrophe from.
Prevent this was here one of the points. Yeah. This is not business in this moment, but it's a good example of what we can do with the technical, what we have actually in our hands.
Yes, awesome. That's a very fascinating example. Thank you very much for sharing this. What do you think? Any further comments on this, or would you have any further examples yourself, maybe, which you find fascinating in terms of innovation in a digital world? And we have seen from this example also nicely there was the technology there to forecast and to report this, but of course there was a whole supply chain behind it. In order to react to this forecast, which then again leads to our notion that it takes business process management to actually leverage the potential which we have with digital innovations. It's a fantastic example, really. Yeah, there you go.
Just one comment on, because we're talking about driving innovation in the digital world, we also talked about process automation, process discovery. I think we all agree that many ERP systems or information systems implement processes. And I think we also should all agree that it is a must that we are able to also quickly adapt these processes to changing or evolving needs, which is a big problem when you look at current ERP system, how costly, how expensive it is to change a process. When changing a data attribute in SAP, you might have to pay 50,000 euro for this simple, trivial change. But what I have to add is that there are systems out which allow for defining and automating processes and also dynamically changing them. Either after an organizational change, and you might even migrate running process instances, that is business cases, to the new process version. IBM is doing this, smaller companies like Aristaflow are doing this. So the systems are out there, and also companies see a business value in this, in being able to quickly change their business processes due to evolving needs. And I think when we are talking about innovation, we also need to always be able to talk about change. And the remark that was given there is about, this was maybe a bit explained in a theoretical way, should we be able to even dynamically change a running instance on the fly? And there are also business applications that already use existing technology that allow for such dynamic changes. In the healthcare domain, in the automotive domain, when we talk about knowledge-intensive processes, you can also think of some kind of assistance and guidance and support, but you also need a high degree of flexibility. Otherwise, knowledge workers will not produce the innovation you expect from them, as was discussed this morning. So I want to emphasize this, that IT could also act as an enabler to implement these changes and to even implement them in real time, because when talking about the data that is delivered in real time by Google or by other cyber physical systems or whatever we might think of, we also need to be able then to process these data, to learn from these data, to check. We talked about deviations this morning, but if we detect these deviations and we detect that maybe these deviations were done because there's a better way of doing the process, then we also need to be able to quickly implement this kind of change. And what is your opinion on that? So because IT, in my opinion, IT must be an enabler to implement these changes and to also be able to realize that kind of business value. So I'm not agreeing that we say, well, don't touch these running systems. it's too risky or so, because the technology is there. It is not used widespread, and also, but I also know IBM customers using this feature of changing, even running instances due to a change of their process, for instance. Yeah?
Thank you very much for this comment. Manfred Reichert, University of Ulm, BPM expert as well.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this?
Reduce the complexity in your system is the first. It's the first. The second one is, I'm with you, don't touch a running system. But in the healthcare, but yes, the industry you named healthcare, you have the FDA here and the GMP. Clearly, you don't have any changes to change here in this moment. So easy the process. After you change the process, coming also the FDA must check the process, give you approval of this one. This is here the regulatory. This is not easy. But for the manufacturing industry, and honestly, looks back the last 20 years what we implement of ERP system. Most of them in Europe of SAP. And look also the last 5 to 10% of the complexity was also the expensivest ones. So you pay, the boss wants, I want here, in German say, die letzte Schleife. Mm-hmm. And this is that what is complex, what is expensive, and the benefit, I don't know, was so big.
Okay.
So reduce the complexity is the first, and really we reduced a lot of customer complexity. He can handle this complexity. Why? The most of the people would here build up or implement here this system internally. The guys is not there. He step out and this develop, and he developed extreme much on the system, and he can here maintenance this system is not possible. Mm-hmm. So, and my clear statement is reduce, go a little bit more to the standard, not the last 5 to 10% develop. And this is my clear approach. And I say this to Novartis, to BMW, and this is an important point.
So can I translate this into a statement that processes never change? So we need to come up with a standard process, and then they never change?
No.
And then we don't have complexity, neither do we have costs.
No, this was not my answer. The answer was, if you have to change the sunshine time, change your problem in this moment and give you more agility in this moment. Yeah, actually, I don't know for which company you work, but that's what I see here in different companies. Very similar problems. Mr. Baldi, don't touch the system, it's running, and we are very happy with this, but it's too complex, it's too expensive, but don't touch this. But it's end of life, your version. Yes, I know it, I must pay more maintenance by SAP, but don't touch this. So, yes, this is one approach. The other approach is, I check really the situation and reduce the complexity. I don't have any change in the bad time to change this. In the good time, actually, we have to have time and money to change this. Mm-hmm. But we must do that. He's not a question. Won't we do that? You must do that, actually. This is so dramatic, dangerous for the company. It's running a system with this complexity.
I think you have to find the right balance, what you build up in your ERP system, what you keep off your ERP system. Exactly. You cannot build up 100% of all your processes. I mean, number one, you as you mentioned already, right? You take away flexibility. You have to basically adapt your ERP every time. You implement a change. And my experience, not with Swarovski, but formerly in the high-tech industry, when you do too much, when you build too many processes in the MRP or ERP system, right, you take away the responsibility from the people who are operating the system. And you need people like planners or logistic people or whatever who understand the business and who understand the process. And if you build in too much into these systems, the people have the tendency just to execute what the system is telling them without even understanding it. And therefore, I think, don't over-engineer an ERP system, because you will lower the intellectual property in front of the screen eventually, right? So I rather keep, they need to understand what they are doing. So a little bit more legwork sometimes doesn't harm.
Thank you. Still?
Yeah, I want to comment on that. It's amazing. I like to observe stories by people, and it's amazing how we identify process management with what happens with an ERP system. I think you're exactly right. I think there's more technology out there than just what we gotten used to in ERP systems. currently technology infrastructures have three innovative capabilities if we want to use them, and we're not using them to the fullest. But one, that's Will's approach, that is, if we can do stuff on the basis of events and respond to events, brilliant, we can be way more innovative. Two, if we can on the spot decompose our processes in services and recompose them based on events, brilliant. Number three, if we are good at predicting things with big data and stuff, we can do like what Amazon is doing, that is shipping stuff to locations before even things are ordered. That's amazing innovation. But I do want to get back to what my colleague here said. We should not assume that reconfiguring systems, existing systems, legacy, is without a cost and without risk. Also, number two, when you look at technology, you tend to underestimate the absorptive capacity of people to follow the technological change. And that's also something we need to take into account. So we indeed need to balance a lot of stuff, not least the technology, and where's the people in this whole story?
I agree with that. On one
now
hand,
there's a but.
Not but I can remember in the software engineering domain 2 decades ago or so, no one was believing in software development processes based on techniques like Scrum, doing agile software development, and nowadays even SAP is applying Scrum. And the second remark, also in the keynote this morning, emphasis was put on that innovation particularly relies on knowledge-intensive, creative processes. And then processes become pretty unstructured, but still require some kind of support, which is not yet there. The technology is there, but the use of the technology to provide this agility, to provide some guidance, but also to provide all the flexibility is not yet there.
Completely agree. Absolutely. I think we still need to make a leap in terms of understanding how project management needs to change, and it's not agile versus everything we've seen. It's going to be a blend. And it's also, and I come back to a point I raised earlier, it's also being capable of architecting systems. And that's not systems architecture, that's enterprise architecture.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Manuel, for this point you raised. The further... Oh yeah, Jörg. Exactly.
I'm still thinking about that point of agility and speed, and I'm not sure if I totally agree. To some extent, yes, but...
Thanks.
What? Do you have to be very fast in inventing new products, or do you have to be very fast in changing your processes? My maybe a little slightly different view would be you have to define and structure good processes to be fast in inventing new products. And my opinion would be inventing new products has to be very fast. And you have to have the right processes, and they do not change so often. Maybe the technology changes, and sometimes the processes change. For example, if a grocery store goes into internet and becomes an internet store, that changes the processes. If a wholesaler goes into internet, that does not change the process so heavily. The technology changes a little bit. I think we have to differentiate in processes, in my opinion, that do not change very fast. In technology, maybe even a little bit faster, and in changing products, inventing new stuff we want to sell to the customer, and then we have to be very fast.
You have more layer than one layer only, fast and speed, this is correct. But I give you a small example for better understanding what I mean end of the day. For 2 years ago, I was coming here to the buzzwords fracking. I was, I heard this worldwide, but we work at this time. I have 3 offices around about this area, Dubai, Riyadh, and Jeddah. So, and SABIC, one of the big ones worldwide for gas, production of gas worldwide. America start with fracking, the gas price worldwide reducing in 1 week 30%. You have ships with gas to USA, not one, hundreds. And you have you must reduce the price 30%. Or the Americans say, no, I don't want this. Why? Can you produce 30% cheaper than the gas? What do you do in this moment? You must check worldwide. If you have 1-2 days, but the ship is running, oil for ship, you must pay every day a lot of money for this, in which area can sell this gas in this moment. We don't speak here from 1-2 million. We speak from 100 million in this moment. So what do it, SABIC? Check situation, check here a little bit the geodatas, weathers, how fast we can here bring the ships to Brazil or to China back or with the Panama Canal and so on. And this is real data and you must change. In this same moment, you change the business model complete and you change all processes at this moment. Not the production process, but the complete logistic process with all costs.
A very interesting point you're raising here, and I think maybe one way of looking at it to understand is the difference between the process structure and the instances of the process, right? Jörg was rather referring to the structure of the processes, which will still remain kind of sales processes.
Have more layers, it's clear.
You're looking more from a supply chain management perspective on the instances, but and there you're totally right. You have to completely reschedule and replan and execute in such situations. Probably that's a way to look at it. So, as a compromise.
I feel absolutely. This is correct. Absolutely, with more layers, the more layer. But end of the day, I must look here around the business, and the business change here can change very fast. So, and there's impact of IT in this moment. You must check the prices worldwide. Which customer can here buy this price actually? How big is here the price? What must spend also additional for the ship must here turn back to China and so on. And this you must be here and check really in the daily, in the real time, how we can here change here our business.
Yeah, that's true.
And this was also an example, but I'm sure we find here a lot of more examples for change of the business process management in 1, 2, 3 hours, 1, 2, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Finally, I only can agree with your statement. There are certain processes in a company you rather stay stable with, right? I mean, that it is delivering to the customer in 99.x% of the cases the next business day. That everything is there, what needs to be at the construction site. That's our brand promise. That's what you need to fulfill. And I mean, you don't want to fiddle around with that supply chain area, right? That's the same here. I mean, there's reliability first. But if I now look to the development process of our products, you need to give a certain flexibility to the process, right? I mean, there are different systems developed. There's measuring, for example, developing these nice lasers. There's software inside. You have Scrum processes in. It's a totally different area than developing now a drilling hammer. So there we need the flexibility. There you perhaps also need to adapt your processes quickly to the needs and also perhaps even on a team level. If you have a younger team, fresh from the university, equipped with other tools than an older team. It's just an example, right? It's not about age, but it's just an example that might even differentiate between the teams. But supply chain, it must be stable. We don't want to fiddle around with our SAP system here on that side. Delivery first. The customer the ability to call us, to place an order, to get the goods. That is essential. There is no flexibility that must work, and we don't want to fiddle around in that area.
Thank you very much for your comments. Are there further points you would like to shoot at the panelists within the whole scope of the topic, driving innovation in a digital world? Is there anything you would like to ask or raise? Yes, please, Phil.
This is So perhaps a question to Tobias. When will my boorhammer be connected to the internet? And if that happens, what kind of new services, etc., will Hilti deliver?
I mean,
because I think that's a kind of nice innovation.
Yeah, we're currently working on that. I only can tell you that we are working on that, and that we will be investing heavily into additional services, and we will to a certain degree enter that software market, have a look on in the construction industry. Where can we, with software, create additional value for our customers? And that also means that we are connecting sooner or later our drilling hammers. I mean, the Internet of Things is there, and we are intensively testing that at this point in time, for example, with proactive maintenance, right? I mean, and that's not only about drilling hammers. I mean, I just saw a presentation last week where a coffee machine producer is now putting a SIM card into his big devices to organize the maintenance. All these kind of things are currently being developed and be thought about. Yep.
So the devices that you have now, when they are brought back to Hilti, do you know things about their usage?
They are we to a certain degree we can already see that for sure. I mean, there are a couple of counters we can see how many hours is the device used and so on. We also need that to improve our quality, right? I mean, that is already there. We just now need to think about how do we get this data out of the device, put it online. Today, I mean, we are doing a more or less offline analysis out of that. I mean, when we get it for repair, right? And luckily our products are that stable that we don't see them too often. And when we see them, to be open with you, we had that already a couple of years ago, the problem, you even cannot read the serial number anymore because it's that heavily used that you cannot read it anymore. So in the meantime, we put it in a digital manner into the system so that we can read it with an RFID reader, that we have the serial number any minimum and get a couple of basic data out of that. But for sure, we're working on that, including software updates and so on, to get that on an online level. There's no doubt about that the construction side will get digital. If you look to that whole BIM, building information modeling, which you need, for example, in the US, it's already mandatory to use. At the government side, that you have digital models of the houses. There's no question at all that our laser systems must connect to these plans, right? And just as an example, I'm building my own house right now. They're bidding it up, and the digger, digging into the ground. I asked him how high are the costs for that new digger, and he said 200,000 Swiss francs. I said, and 220,000 for the GPS system. I said, what? For the GPS system? And then the construction guy explained me and showed me that he had a complete digital plan of it. He doesn't need to go out anymore out of his digger. He just dig into the ground, and exactly on a centimeter base, he's digging it. So therefore, you see, digital is there. We just need to go that way, and he's fully committed to that.
Very nice, thank you. Jörg, you wanted to comment?
That sticks to that. You're well known at a company who sells drilling machines. When do you start selling holes in the wall? So that means the combination of physical products and services, you're coming from a point where you're selling products and now you are combining your products with services, and is the end of the line only selling services?
I mean, the amount of services we will sell is definitively increasing. I mean, there's no question at all. It starts with engineering services. We are having a look on that. Today you get them for free. We are analyzing, does it make sense to invest into that or not? I mean, that's a thinking process right now. But finally, I mean, we don't want to enter the construction industry now and drilling the holes for the customers. That's probably not. But everything else, that the drilling machine is automatically drilling the right holes at the right position into the wall? Yes. That will most probably become reality, that the drilling hammer is telling you, now drill here. That will come, definitively. But we will not put the construction guys on and drill the hole. That's not the plan. But services, yes. I mean, also how to use our products. If you look at that today, we are already providing a lot of complex products which you need to explain. So you need skilled people to bring them to the construction site and show where are the benefits. Our products are not self-explainable in all cases, right? I mean, we really need to show them the benefits, and when they see the benefits, they're using them because they're faster, they increase their productivity. And that's more and more also that service business we need to enter. Sure.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there further comments, questions, ideas? If that's not the case, then we might move on to the third round. You may have recognized that we already passed 2 rounds without indicating the rounds really. Third round would look into considering all these inspiring issues, and I think we can really see there's a huge interest in the topic on both sides, practice and academia. What could be ideas to foster collaboration in this area? Yeah, that would be kind of probably a nice wrap-up round also, that we exchange our views probably on innovative models, how to cooperate between business and research. Maybe to give you a couple of examples to get thinking going. For instance, together with a great number of regional companies, most of them you can see here, also representing themselves as sponsors also, we set up competence centers at the University of Liechtenstein where we really intensively collaborate on specific issues. A competence center on business process management, we have a competence center on green IT, we have a competence center on big data analytics, just to name a few. And these are centers meeting kind of on a regular basis with representatives from industry, from different companies, having all sharing an interest in this subject matter we are working on, plus a group of researchers from our team. And they kind of agree on a research agenda for the next 3 to 5 years and get work done, you know. So it starts off with companies formulating the demand and the issues, the projects that are coming up. Then kind of the academic side presents what we could answer so far already from what's out there in the textbooks and in the conferences. And then we carve out a research agenda considering a number of really hot topics which are still need to be studied. And then we agree on a research plan, yeah, a method, what could we do? We then do case research in those companies, yeah, we advise projects, at the same time we collect data, and analyzing kind of the situation, learning together with these organizations, which is interesting both for research and of course for practice. We are intensively doing this with Hilti, of course, as our very sponsor also of the chair of business process management, but also with various other companies in the region. Or another example is with Camelot. We are together investigating into solutions to apply big data analytics in practice. So we together set up an initiative as a collaboration that investigates into projects in this area, projects which are then real projects on Camelot side, and for which we as researchers provide knowledge and ideas and solutions which are best in class. And I find these are just 2 examples which come to my mind, which have proven quite successful. Or another example may be kind of also the BPM Round Tables we see all over the globe now, and which have been kind of brought together in the European BPM Round Table. And in addition to the European one, we have a local one. And we are meeting on a quarterly basis with all people who have an interest in business process management from various sectors in events which are kind of smaller than this one still, of course, it's local, it's not European, but still we have quite a significant participation, and this is an opportunity for everybody to show up and to raise some concerns, some issues, and to engage into a discussion with us on how we could further develop the field and also help and provide advice for practical work. So these are just maybe now 3 examples which have proven quite successful, but it would be interesting maybe, since we have the capacity here in the room now, to further think of other initiatives which might serve as examples you may have heard of, or maybe also to look a little bit on the demand and supply side of such research and practice collaborations.
May I talk about the potentiality?
Absolutely. Very good, thank you.
So, I'm talking on behalf of PhD students and PhD researchers that can happen. We talked about the industry, that's how they want to have their result quickly, and their research, which from the other side, they want to have publications. I mean, when I'm looking at companies, even these days they don't have that much reports. They have PowerPoints, or even some companies, they move to audios while we are working on the papers and we want to do publications and peer-reviewed publications. Considering these two maybe conflicting interests, I was thinking, and I was discussing this with someone who had a PhD and was involved, was working actually in industry. And the matter is that we shouldn't find an interest, and considering the nature of industry especially. Industry people, normally they want to have quarterly results. So what should happen, maybe PhD supervisor, and especially you can comment on this, is that you should redefine the research questions and the research design phase in a way that every 3 months there would be a result, even a small, but would be presented to the industry. And incrementally build over that in order to, at the end of the last year of PhD, you have the whole package that was expected from a PhD and the feedback from industry. Normally what is happening is that the first year there is research gap, heavily, intensively working on the research questions, which is required, of course, and then defining research questions. The second year, I'm from design part, we design a solution. Then third year we implement it, and then the fourth year goes for a write-up. So this cycle can be changed in order to be appealing for industry people, that they can see the result. And I'm insisting on having joint projects and having both supervisor from industry and from academia, and even splitting the time if it's possible. Especially the first year when they want to find out the problem. They found the problem, of course, big enough for a PhD from the organization. So this is a potentiality that we came from a brainstorm. Maybe you can have some discussions and maybe a starting point to redefine the way we do research in order to make it more appealing for industry people.
Absolutely.
I mean, perhaps industry people can.
Absolutely, thank you very much. I think that's a very good model. And first of all, maybe if I may try to sum up what I understood so far is that you also already started off making the strong point that there might be different expectations.
Exactly.
And also different logics maybe behind the work, which needs alignment. Yeah, which is totally clear. And from our experience, for instance, what we try to do is to align as long as possible, and then certainly you have a certain last mile, or a couple of last miles, which go towards the research stakeholders and the academic, and the others to the practitioners. Yeah?
We need to publish definitely and contribute to body of knowledge.
Exactly, you need to do both.
There is no way that...
Absolutely.
But we should at the same time, as they told, build a trust between industry
That's it.
and academia.
Yeah.
I'm not a PhD supervisor, I'm just a PhD student, but maybe experts can comment on that.
Of course, yeah, thank you very much. But definitely what I can definitely support is it needs learning on both sides.
Exactly.
And this is also why we are we have made good experience with kind of strategic partners of you. We work with very intensively, because then you can really engage in this joint learning on both sides. Yeah. What is Jörg? He has a tremendous experience in this field. What's your take?
Friday, thank you very much for this really good comment. It's a difficult field. And I really love being researcher, and from all my heart I'm being researcher, working on problems, so I hope that somebody has. And that's the point. I see a little danger in the, let me say, research industry. What you said is right. You have to publish, or perish. And publishing is a technique as well. And there is a danger that because of this technique of publishing, you forget to research. Not every paper that is published is really research. It's a good technique of good writing without content. And I tell my PhD students, I don't mean you personally. I mean the research industry that we see right now. And I say to my young researchers, if you don't burn for a question, leave it. Become practitioner from the very beginning on. And really this only focus on publishing is a kind of a danger for good research, because good research is having brilliant ideas and going from one paper to the next paper to the next paper to the next paper hinders you producing brilliant ideas. And sometimes it's better to work with the company for 3 months, for 6 months, even for a year, to see the real problems of the world, then go back thinking about that and come up with a brilliant idea. And then you can write in 1.5 years only 1 paper and not 6. And that's the danger.
Yeah,
thank you very much, Jörg. Very, very wisely said. Absolutely.
The insisting was not in publishing. It was that, okay, we keep the publication. Of course we should. I mean, this is a must in academia. We cannot change it. And there is a problem. But the other side was that having a proper connection with industry and trying to feel what they need and have the research questions and the practicality for those companies or set of companies. I agree totally with you that there is a difference between publishing and lots of publications, maybe not be written, read even in future, but yeah, that's an issue that maybe
what I totally see, I fully agree with both of you, and absolutely also with this notion of publication or research industry, which might be very dangerous. But what I see as a real difference, also coming in here, is that business is interested in a specific solution of a specific problem, while research in general would be more interested in solutions of classes of problems. That's it. So more generic solutions, and that is also a thing. Yeah, it is not enough to only study the one problem which is relevant for the one company, and then write it up. Then you will never end up with a decent, I won't say publication, but contribution to theory, really, because you need to abstract and generalize more. But nevertheless, I mean that's totally right. Both comments are very valid, and I fully agree in particular with Jörg here that it is so important that you have a deep understanding of a problem and that you have a dedication really to finding a solution which drives you through the years, and then it's more a matter of what you consider maybe while conducting the practical work also, that you collect data, that you kind of document what you do, so that you may later be also in the position to use that in your research, probably. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, very nice. Further comments, maybe related to this already?
If I may.
Yeah, of course.
We have a long tradition at Vlerick Business School working with companies in all sorts of ways.
Yes.
And why is that? Because unfortunately in Belgium, if you mention the word business process management and you associate research with that, all the funding agencies would say that is too practical. That's not fundamental enough. So go and find your money with companies. So we've grown, pretty good at running up some money, and it comes in different forms. We do student projects with companies. Every year there's quite a bit. So you keep a finger at the pulse to really sense and feel what is happening in the field. We do case studies where the academics get more involved, which is a longer trajectory. We also do round tables, and we have 2 research centers where we have multiple companies come together once in a while, typically 4 times a year, to discuss a certain topic that is hot in the market. And then next to that, we also have PhD trajectories. Now that's the most difficult one. Why? Because in my book, a PhD student needs peace of mind to work on a fundamental issue. And the problem with working with a company when it comes to funding PhD research, often they say we can only guarantee 1 year of funding. And then every year there's that stress again that will I get my next round of financing? And what we've seen is that this kind of PhD trajectory is in competition with other types of PhD funding sources, and it's not the easiest one. So we tend to have more funds than candidates for these kind of things. 2, I think it all comes down to having a good sponsor with a company. If your sponsor in the company believes that there's some value in looking at something fundamentally that is through a lens that is scientific, then you're okay. But if you're into, with all due respect, if you're into the logic of the consultant that wants to see the end of year bonuses, the end of year budgets, etc., my experience is that it's very, very hard. And the risk is, and it's a serious risk, is that the student working on the project gets burned out and stops before actually you get to the end.
That's very, very nice. And that relates to really kind of selecting those projects right. So there's definitely a lot of demand in terms of practical work, which might be covered by PhD students, which wouldn't be beneficial for those PhD students to start actually working on. And that's probably also, as you mentioned, Farida, the role of the supervisors to guide selecting the right partners and topics.
Yeah, and set expectations.
And set expectations on both sides.
It takes a lot of time setting expectations with companies you start to work with.
Exactly. And then also social capital, as mentioned before. If you have long-term relationships, much easier, because then you have trust, you have relations, you have, absolutely nice topic and level of discussing this with you guys. I appreciate we are such a big consensus. So further comments maybe, or would there be Will?
Look at the groups that are involved in BPM Round Tables all across Europe, I think they are very positive examples in terms of universities that reach out to organizations that, so many of the groups work with many different companies. So I think it's a very, I'm not too worried about being exposed to industry problems. However, as a researcher, I think it's also incredibly important to specialize. What I see is that with some of the researchers that are exposed to influences of industry, that they work on something different every year. And by that they are not attractive for industry in the long run, because they are not specialists in a recognizable area. But I think overall the picture is quite positive. However, if I go specifically to the BPM area, I think there are 2 problems that I see, which I do not really see how to address very easily. I think the first problem is that by the nature of our field, there are incredibly many organizations using BPM, like banks, insurance, municipalities, whatever. So there are potentially many users. But the question is who pays? Who pays for the research? And if I look at, for example, my colleagues in electrical engineering, they get a wafer stepper from ASML, value 30,000 million, and it's a deal that is done in an afternoon, and nobody talks about it. Because it's a one-to-one relationship. It's the only company in the world that is doing these types of things. They look at the experts that are the only one in the world that have that expertise.
Exactly.
And then the deal is being made. With BPM, I think it's very it's needed everywhere, but who wants to pay for it?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm surprised that large banks, etc., don't really have funding to invest, I don't know, 0.5% of their budget in these types of things. Well, it's clear that they are essential. So I think that that's one thing. The other thing, and I think that that's a bit related to the comment of Manfred before, I also have the feeling that the transfer of ideas to industry, in particular mature software products that are used at a wide scale, often things get stuck there. And it's probably because customers are unable to ask for the right things. And it's also a kind of problem which I don't know how to... And so many things have been solved, and there is clearly a need in industry for these solutions, but it doesn't get there. That's a kind of... I can see the totally frustration of Manfred, and I think it's a concern that in 10 or 20 years we will be talking about exactly the same things.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much, Will. Mario?
Two comments to your statement. But why are we sitting here? But from my perspective, I think I heard today a lot of innovative approaches. So my business, my job is how can you bring this theoretical, from this university, this theoretical approach to the solution, this innovative approach to the solution, what we can sell to the market. That's my job. And the combination of here, the technical or the theoretical approach to the practical approach, what we can sell to the customer, this is my job. And you will see we have worldwide a lot of consulting companies that do the same, but it's our job. But we don't sell to a customer, you need BPM. No. We do that, but we don't sell this. So with this name, the name BPM, you hear this, the most customers, oh, it's expensive. Oh, please, don't come in with this one. But if I see his inventory is too high, and he have, in the same moment, a problem with his cash flow, he don't discuss with me of BPM, please close me the gap. But you do the same in the moment. You bring in here the BPM.
Exactly.
But you reduce his problem of inventory management and he optimize his cash flow. And this is BPM end of the day, not more.
That's true.
We sell here as consultancy companies, not BPM. We sell here solutions.
Exactly. I fully understand. This is something I think also discipline often, how to say, still lacks, to look into the purpose. We're very often looking into the means, discussing the means, and then kind of trying to sell the means. But we should kind of sell the purpose rather, and then kind of have the means, the big BPM toolbox or the handbook in our suitcase. And this is then our weapon. We could use, but we are not selling that and labeling it like that all the time. That's probably a notion which could bring us forward. Maybe, yeah. Jan wanted to comment on this as well.
It's a little bit of a tangent to the topic, but I think it applies to this, and that is the concept of open data or shared data between organizations, between universities, or obviously between all of them. I think it has a lot of implications for this discussion around how industry academia connect, or also how we train our students, etc. Like for the student perspective, for example, imagine a world where you don't have to spend 2 years collecting data because someone else has done it for you. Yeah. But I was particularly interested in some of the barriers to that. We live in the process space, so process performance data, I don't know, process design data, etc., is not readily or willingly shared all the time. But I know that in our field, in academia, it happens in it happens in pockets, that we share model collections, that we share trail data, etc. But the possibilities of truly open data for research or even for knowledge transfer are actually endless if we find ways to overcome the barriers. But I wanted to hear the opinions on that.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much, Jan. What's your opinion? How accessible is knowledge for you as
that is exactly one of the reasons why we are currently, when it comes to innovation, business model innovation, process model innovation, etc., we're working with governments. There's this big hype these days that government is going to be way more creative, open, lean, transparent, etc. if government moves into opening up the data that they have and giving it to like students to do hackathons and these kind of things. So they are open to it. We move to that space to get some of our research funded, and it works.
What's an interesting example? Because it's non-for-profit.
Yeah.
Not really, but corporate organization may see that differently. And I'm not sure whether they want to open their customer data.
Well, I'm not so sure, because what actually happens is the government opens the data, and they basically say, we are willing to give up our service delivery if you can prove us that working with our data, and that's towards for-profit companies, you can do the service better. So you kind of create an ecosystem where you have for-profit and non-for-profit companies working together in an orchestrated way. So you get to process orchestration as some kind of means to innovate, which is pretty neat to observe. So that's one of the reasons why we moved there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Very nice. What is your opinion in general, from a practitioner side? Is there any need to offer additional services from the research side, or would you say would it help you if results would be more made available stronger, if we would set up more initiatives still to get in touch or make results also more easily available, or isn't that an issue in the daily business at all? What would you say?
I think,
Yes.
it does make a lot of sense to work with universities
Yes.
or research organizations, and I wouldn't even mind opening the customer base necessarily. I mean, there are NDAs and all sorts of other legal things to protect us. I don't think that might be an issue for me. Usually, working on definitely the benefit of working with research institutes is that you get new ideas, that you look at things when you work on a long time in a specific profession, that you look at it from one angle, and that will bring you some outside perspective. But on the other hand, the downside, and that makes it really critical, is how to apply the research to my practical requirements, right? To find the right bridge between the industry and the research on the other side, that they communicate in the same direction and not talk in different directions. And I think that's the key thing on working with research institutes.
Yeah. Excellent.
Can I ask you something? Would you be willing to sponsor an inside person to do a PhD? We've done that before, and it works brilliantly. You put a youngster that knows the techniques very well, very bright, but doesn't know anything about the industry, together in a team with a person from industry that has a lot of experience and that has an ambition to do research and even produce a PhD. Would you be willing to do that?
In general, yes, why not?
Follow.
It's a clear depends, right?
Indeed.
I know Philips wants to have their students to be located there in their company.
But it's really creating pairs. It's like extreme programming. You put these people together and they program the research out of their collaboration.
Would they both receive a PhD in the end?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Interesting model.
I mean, we are anyway working very closely together. I mean, and when I look on this Hilti Fellowship program, which we both implemented, I mean, the success is definitively there. If you just look to the back, that on the one hand side, I mean, you have a very well organized semester here at the university. On the other hand side, you're working deeply integrated into real life projects, which we are having at Hilti. That is a real success model. And it's not necessarily is a project which is already on the implementation way. We sometimes have the IT garage where we are really trying to invest into areas where we as Hilti ID do not know whether that really that will finally be implemented or not. So that is a good thing. And if I look at the IT innovation competition, we are on a yearly base doing it as Hilti and getting all the input, not only from the University of Liechtenstein, getting from all over the globe. That's absolutely amazing how many different areas you are searching in and you're doing research and then that it's translated into real life solutions. So I think that is a very close relationship, and we get a lot out of that. And not only that we can hire good students, which is one thing, The other thing is the insight is amazing and it's really bringing us forward.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you say that, and I think that's can exactly second this. It's a very good tradition, and it's established over years. And I think this comes back to you need to build relations in order to form trust and set expectations right. And then, as Din said, also there are various forms how one could collaborate on all levels. And I'm very glad that you all mentioned this and that you all appreciate also from the business side collaborations like this. Because also I find it's of course beneficial for organizations, but also beneficial for the university, and last but very much not least, beneficial for students as well. Because I personally firmly believe that working on a problem or a project or a thesis, either only theoretically or in conjunction with real-life problems in companies, makes a huge difference in how I understand the problem at all. You very often, once you have an insight into real-life business, ask yourself how certain research results should actually deliver value if you really understand the real-world problems. And I think this is very good also that on all levels of education, bachelor, master, PhD, one could and should, and we are trying to do this, link very closely to industry and government and other societal organizations in order to further improve this, which is beneficial for students as well. Yeah, thank you very much. With respect to time, I unfortunately need to close the panel here at this stage. I would like to ask the audience to give a warm applause once again to our panelists. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You may keep seated for a while. I will try to quickly maybe wrap up this wonderful day, which of course is not easy or will not be comprehensive, cannot be comprehensive at all, right? Because I hope you experienced it like I did. There were so many inspiring ideas, so many things I put down, and I saw a couple of you also putting things down, so many inspirations we hopefully all carry home from this inspiring and intensive day. Nevertheless, I tried to picture a little bit what happened. I remember that in the morning we very strongly had the notion of, and Jörg highlighted this with his introduction very nicely, asking whether he should give his talk at all, because it was criticized if models would be relevant at all, or standardization would be relevant at all, or needed at all. And then, of course, we came back and saying, yes, sure, there are situations in which they are necessary, but we were talking pretty much about really this notion of where BPM emerged from, which later referred to a little bit like old school business process management, a modern style of business process management, which is more opening to other areas also where probably those models need to look different at least. We also learned that in this wonderful presentations, it relates to the right level of abstraction. Yeah? A model as such probably is nothing bad, but it depends on how the model looks like and how it fits the purpose and the user it is built for. And very likely we need to change also the way we do models. Yeah? We cannot assume that process models look alike, regardless of what we want to do with them or where we want to apply them. So this I found was one theme, yeah, which was to be found here. Another theme certainly was deviance. Yeah, deviance in multiple ways. We picked it up even in the breaks, and some people showed deviant behavior, choosing the lunch, and so that was very nice. I think this is something which will very much stay with us and will be related here to our round table. And interestingly, really positive as well as negative deviance. And whether it is positive or negative really also depends then on, again, the application area and the context we are in. And I found that was definitely a theme we were nicely talking about. We then later on came up with a theme here on speed. And I found that was very inspiring as well, because of course innovation and digital innovation, probably opposed to innovation as such, may be characterized by a number of things, but one thing may be that these innovation cycles are even speeding up even more so today and in the future through kind of the IT enablement and the IT aspect in it. So speed will be very important. Speed not only identifying new ideas, but also realizing them. So change and agility, ability to change. Also the notion of capabilities I found very nice, which is definitely in the research of quite a few of us, and also in a lot of projects, that we're not only looking at processes and try to fix or get a process right, but that we rather look into developing capabilities within organizations to do this in an agile manner on their own. So I found that was a nice element as well. And in terms of speed, also we discussed then very nicely the notion of solid core and flexible boundary. As probably an approach how to bring this contradictory objectives together, that we on the one hand need stability in certain areas of our business, but on the other hand we need to be agile. So this notion I think was also very nice. Well, ultimately, if we would like to sum up and come back to the overall theme, business process management, driving innovation in a digital world, can BPM drive innovation in a digital world? Certainly yes. I think we all gave proof and evidence to it. But we also saw that we need to have the right understanding of business process management, right? So it is not an understanding of business process management looking only into a single process. It is looking into capacities. It's not only looking into means, it's looking into purposes. Yeah? It is not using workflow management systems because that used to be done 10 years ago and today, but it is appropriating contemporary technology and a number of other things, I think, which we can learn on how to do good business process management in order to then really serve also the purpose of driving innovation in the digital world. And let me just add a comment. Last year we met here in a subset of people and we worked towards 10 principles of good business process management, which have just recently been published. And those of you who have an interest in that, these principles kind of sum up, interestingly, a number of those elements which also were very present here today in the presentations and discussions. Good news is also we have heard a lot of advertisements and advertising here for books. This also gives me the opportunity to thank Christian Rauscher, the publisher with Springer, a very close partner to us and to quite a few of you have been very supportive in helping to establish business process management as a field through publishing a number of very essential books. And the good news also is that we will also publish a book on this event. It is not yet ready though, because we also extended the amount of authors. So the presenters here are authors, but also we had an invite of further colleagues from outside Europe who contribute to this book. And it will be a book entitled Business Process Management, Driving Innovation in a Digital World. And once it will be available, we will definitely let you know via email. This book is edited by Theresa Schmiedl and myself, and this leads me also to saying a cordial thank you to not only Theresa, but in particular Theresa, but the whole team who made this possible, this event, which of course you can imagine was quite an effort. We only estimated roughly and came up with So our BI system roughly estimated the amount of emails written, and we ended up with an estimate of 3,816 emails in coordinating this event. And they were not automatically generated. So I would like to really recognize the team who really put this forward. It's, of course, the whole institute, but some people have shown really outstanding performance here. And I would like to ask them to come to the stage here, which is Theresa Schmiedl coordinating this event. Which is also Nadine Reuter, who you may have been in touch with. Yeah. which is also Nicole Töni, our team assistant. She is where? At the apéro. She is even not receiving this recognition. She's preparing the apéro. So we will thank her later. It is Michael Weiser, who is a student assistant in our team. He's outside also. May get it. And which is also Axel Haas, who is another research assistant. And you see how busy they are. Even now they are working and preparing. But you know, the guys receive a nice bottle of wine, but we will hand them over later. And Teresa and Nadine, it was just wonderful to see how you inspired the event, to see how much effort you put into this from the very beginning. It was really amazing. And they both work hard on a number of important research projects and publications, and it was really fascinating to see how much time you set aside for this event. And I would really like to thank you for this extraordinary personal effort you put into it. Thank you very much. Okay, so at this stage, last words maybe. I found it so inspiring to work with you today. And let us stay in touch, right? I mean, there's so much in the room now in terms of ideas. There's so much in the room in terms of potentials and demands and thoughts. Please feel free to contact us, me in person or the team, whenever you feel it might make sense. We offer such a variety of opportunities in terms of teaching materials, courses, research projects, advisory services. So don't hesitate to contact us. Last words, I would like to invite you to, what's going on? Of course. Of course. There is the apéro ready outside, and I would like to cordially invite you to the apéro to have some drinks. Nadine also has some, what is it, shirts? Okay, we have shirts, we have gifts for all speakers. So we have nice shirts from the University of Liechtenstein, I suppose. Yours? What size do you need?
It's
Okay, we are disseminating the shirts here. This is you?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah?
Thank you.
That's me.
Oh, you know that already? Okay, then.
It's written.
Is it a test?
Yeah, really? Yes.
Peter.
Upsize is small.
Very good. Hajo? Okay. Hajo, Jan, you can come to the
Yes, probably.
Jans? Okay, very good. Another Jan? There you go, very good. Marlon is far away. Where is he? Oh, Marlon. That's too far.
Just give him an orange. Orange.